The men came for me at 2:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I was looking at my alarm clock when my bedroom door burst open and three strangers walked in like they had every right to be there. I was 16 years old. I'd gone to bed after finishing my chemistry homework, after texting my best friend about the dance next weekend, after brushing my teeth and setting out my clothes for school the next day. Normal teenage things. I had no idea I was living my last normal night. Juniper Castellane? The first man was tall, built like someone who worked out professionally, wearing all black. He had a clipboard and a flashlight, and the kind of voice that expected compliance. "What? Who are you? Get out of my room." I scrambled back against my headboard, pulling my blanket up like it could protect me from whatever this was. The second man moved to the side of my bed. "We're youth transport specialists. Your parents have enrolled you in a therapeutic program. We're here to escort you to the facility." "What are you talking about? I'm not going anywhere." "Dad! Dad!" My father appeared in the doorway. Theodore Castellane, successful architect. My dad, the man who used to read me bedtime stories and take me to museums on Saturdays. He looked older in the harsh hallway light, his face drawn with something that might have been guilt or might have been exhaustion. "Dad, what's happening? Who are these people?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Uni, you're going to a school, a place that can help you." "Help me with what? I have straight A's. I haven't done anything wrong. I don't understand." My stepmother Cordelia appeared behind him, perfectly composed even at 3 in the morning. She'd probably been awake, waiting for this moment. Her hand rested on my father's shoulder in a gesture that looked supportive but felt possessive. "This is for your own good, Juniper," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "You've been so troubled lately, so angry and defiant. This program will teach you respect and responsibility." "I'm not troubled. I'm not defiant. Dad, please, you know me. You know I haven't done anything." But he just stood there, a man I no longer recognized, and let it happen. The transport specialist didn't give me time to pack, didn't let me grab my phone or my wallet or even put on real clothes. I was in pajamas and bare feet when they walked me out of my house, past my stepmother's satisfied smile, past my father's cowardice. The last thing Cordelia said to me, whispered so my father couldn't hear, was this: "When you come back, if you come back, everything you thought was yours will be mine. You're in the way, little girl, and I'm very good at removing obstacles." I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. It would take me months to piece together what she'd actually done. Years to understand the full scope of her plan to erase me. They drove me for 14 hours, handcuffed for the first 6 like I was a criminal. I asked where we were going. They wouldn't tell me. I asked what I'd done wrong. They said my parents would explain everything. I asked if I could call someone. Anyone. They said no phones were allowed at the program. Somewhere in Arizona, as the sun rose over endless desert, I realized I'd been kidnapped with my own father's permission. We arrived at a place called Desert Summit Academy just after noon. The heat hit me like a physical blow when they opened the van doors. Over 100 degrees, dry air that burned my lungs, sun so bright I could barely see. The facility wasn't a school. It was a collection of military-style tents in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. No buildings, no classrooms, no anything that looked remotely educational or therapeutic. A woman in khaki cargo pants and a polo shirt with the Desert Summit logo met us at the gate. She had a clipboard, too. Everyone here seemed to have clipboards, like documentation, made what they were doing legitimate. Juniper Castellane, 16 years old, diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, suspected substance abuse, history of aggressive behavior toward family members. She read this like she was describing a package being delivered, not a human being. That's not true. None of that is true. She didn't even look at me. Your parents wouldn't have sent you here if there wasn't a problem. The sooner you accept responsibility for your behavior, the sooner you can start healing. They took everything. My pajamas because I needed to earn the right to wear regular clothes. My shoes because I needed to earn those too. They issued me a gray t-shirt, gray shorts, and a pair of boots that didn't fit. They shaved my head, every girl's head, because hair is a privilege, not a right. Then they handed me a shovel and pointed at a patch of desert. "Dig a trench. 6 feet long, 6 feet wide, 6 feet deep. When you're done, fill it back in. This teaches you the value of hard work and the consequences of wasted effort. I stared at the shovel, at the hard packed earth, at the sun that was only getting hotter. I don't understand. What did I do? Why am I here? The counselor, they called themselves counselors, but they were just guards, looked at me with practiced indifference. You're here because you're broken. We're going to fix you. Now dig. I dug. What else could I do? I was 16 years old, alone in the middle of the desert with no phone, no money, no way to contact anyone who might help me. I dug until my hands bled. Dug until the sun started to set and the temperature dropped from unbearable to merely miserable. Dug until someone finally told me to stop. That night, I slept in a tent with 7 other girls, on a cot with a sleeping bag that smelled like mold. The girl next to me, maybe 15, with haunted eyes and scars on her arms, whispered in the dark. How long have you been here? I asked. 9 months, she said. Her name was Sage. My parents paid $8,000 a month to keep me here. How much are yours paying? $8,000 a month. That was more than most people's rent. More than my car insurance and gas and everything else combined. My father was paying someone $8,000 a month to make me dig holes in the desert. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I see every single comment and I appreciate each one of you so much. Your support means the world to me. Now, back to the story. Where does the money come from? Sage asked. Your parents? Or do you have a trust fund? I thought about my grandmother, my mom's mother, who died when I was 14. Thought about the lawyer who'd contacted me on my 16th birthday to tell me about the trust she'd left me. $4.7 million accessible when I turned 18. I'd told no one about that. Trust. No one except the lawyer and the bank. But somehow I had a terrible feeling that Cordelia knew. I have a trust, I whispered. But I never told my stepmother about it. Sage made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. They always know, that's why we're here. They send us away, get us declared incompetent or troubled, then they petition the court for conservatorship. Legal theft. Happens all the time. The pieces started clicking together. Cordelia's sudden interest in my behavior over the past 6 months. The way she'd started telling my father I was acting out, sneaking out, doing drugs I'd never touched. The planted evidence I couldn't explain. The school counselor meetings where she painted me as troubled while I sat there confused because I had straight A's and perfect attendance. She'd been building a case, creating a paper trail, setting up the legal framework to have me declared incompetent so she could control my inheritance, and my father had believed every word she said. I lay there on that moldy cot staring at the tent ceiling, listening to girls cry themselves to sleep, and I understood something fundamental about my situation. This wasn't about fixing me. This was about breaking me. Breaking me so thoroughly that when I finally got out, if I got out, I'd be exactly what Cordelia needed me to be. Incompetent, unstable, unable to manage my own affairs. The next morning started at 5 a.m. with an air horn blast. We had 15 minutes to use the porta potties, splash water on our faces from a communal bucket, and line up for inspection. No showers, no privacy, no dignity. Breakfast was an expired military MRE and a cup of water that tasted like chemicals. The counselor watching us eat explained the rules. Earn points for compliance. Lose points for infractions. Infractions included talking without permission, making eye contact without permission, crying, complaining, asking questions, and showing attitude. What counts? As attitude? One girl asked. The counselor smiled. I'll know it when I see it. We spent the morning moving rocks from one pile to another pile, 100 yards away. Not building anything, not creating anything. Just moving rocks back and forth in 100-degree heat for no reason except to teach us that our labor was meaningless and our suffering was the point. By noon, 3 girls had collapsed from heat exhaustion. The counselors dragged them to the shade, gave them water, and told them to stop being dramatic. No medical care, no real concern. Just irritation that their suffering was inconvenient. That afternoon, they introduced us to the hot seat. A folding chair, placed in full sun with no shade, no water, no movement allowed. Girls were put on the hot seat for infractions real or imagined, sometimes for hours. I watched a girl my age sit there for 4 hours because she'd made eye contact with a counselor. By the end, she was incoherent, sunburned, and crying. I learned quickly to keep my head down, my mouth shut, and my thoughts hidden. I was good at being invisible when I needed to be. My stepmother had taught me that skill over the past 2 years. Be small, be quiet, don't take up space, don't challenge, don't exist too loudly. But I was also documenting everything, every abuse, every deprivation, every cruelty. I kept a journal hidden in my boot, writing in tiny letters on scraps of paper I scavenged, dates, times, names, descriptions, evidence. Because even at 16, even terrified and alone, some part of me knew I'd need proof someday. Sage became my ally. She'd been documenting too, longer than I had with more detail. She'd seen kids broken so badly, they believed they deserved what was happening to them. Seen staff withhold medical care for serious injuries. Seen food used as punishment, with portions getting smaller and smaller until girls passed out from hunger. Why doesn't anyone shut this place down? I asked her one night. Because the parents don't want to know, she said. They pay $8,000 a month for their kid to disappear. The program sends them progress reports that say we're thriving, learning responsibility, becoming better people. Parents visit once, maybe twice, and only see staged presentations where we perform happiness. Anyone who tells the truth gets punished, and the parents never know. My dad hasn't visited once. Mine either. It's been 9 months and I haven't seen or spoken to anyone from my real life. They screen all our letters. Anything that makes the program look bad gets destroyed. We're supposed to write about how grateful we are, how much we're learning, how we deserve to be here. I thought about the letter I'd tried to write my father my first week. Dear Dad, please come get me. This place is horrible. They make us dig holes for no reason. We're not allowed to shower. The food is expired. Girls are collapsing from heat stroke. Please, I'm begging you, come visit and see what this place really is. The counselor had read it, torn it up in front of me, and put me on the hot seat for 4 hours for manipulative behavior and lying to family. The letter I was allowed to send said, Dear Dad, I'm learning a lot about responsibility and respect. The program is challenging, but I understand now that I needed this. Thank you for caring enough to send me here. I didn't write those words. The counselor dictated them while I copied like a trained animal. Months passed. Summer turned to fall, though the desert heat barely changed. I turned 17 in September, digging trenches and moving rocks and surviving. No cake, no celebration, no acknowledgement. Just another day of meaningless labor designed to break my spirit. But something strange was happening. The labor wasn't breaking me. It was making me stronger. Physically stronger, obviously. I had muscles I'd never had before, could lift things I couldn't have managed 6 months earlier, but mentally stronger, too. Every day I survived was proof that I was tougher than Cordelia thought. Every day I kept my secret journal was an act of resistance. Every day I refused to believe I deserved this was a victory. Sage and I started planning our escape around October. We'd been watching the staff schedules, noting the patterns. Every third Thursday, they did overnight wilderness treks with the newer kids taking most of the staff. Only 2 counselors stayed behind with the older residents. And those counselors, comfortable with our learned compliance, got sloppy with security. We'd need supplies. Water, food, something warmer than our gray uniforms for the cold desert nights. A map. A plan for where to go once we got beyond the fence. My grandmother's lawyer, I told Sage. If I can get to a phone, if I can call her, she'll help us. She has to. She's the one who told me about my trust fund. She'll know something's wrong. You remember her number? I did. I'd memorized it the day she called, some instinct telling me I might need it without my phone. Zara Okonkwo. The number was burned into my brain like a lifeline. We spent weeks gathering supplies. An extra MRE here, a water bottle there, things small enough that their absence wouldn't be noticed. I stole a lighter from a counselor's pocket during an inspection. Sage pocketed a map she found in the administrative tent when she was assigned cleaning duty. The night we chose was clear and cold, the kind of November desert night that drops from 90 degrees to 40 after sunset. The Wilderness Trek group had left that afternoon with 6 staff members. Only 2 counselors remained, and by midnight, they were both in the staff tent watching a movie on a contraband laptop. Sage and I slipped out of our tent, crawling on our bellies until we were beyond the lights, then running in a crouch toward the fence. The barbed wire at the top was a problem, but we'd planned for it. We threw our sleeping bags over the worst of it, climbed fast, ignored the cuts, and dropped to the other side. Then we ran. 7 miles to the nearest highway, according to Sage's stolen map. 7 miles through desert darkness with nothing but moonlight and determination. If this story is hitting close to home, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means everything and helps these stories reach more people who need them. Now, let's see what happened when we finally escaped. We made it 4 miles before we heard the ATVs behind us. They'd discovered we were missing, and they were coming. Staff members on all-terrain vehicles with spotlights and radios, hunting us like we were animals. "Split up," Sage gasped. "They can't chase both of us. You go left, I'll go right. Whoever makes it calls the lawyer gets help for both of us. I'm not leaving you. You have to. One of us needs to make it. Go." She shoved me toward a cluster of rocks and took off running in the opposite direction. I heard the ATVs veer toward her, the brighter target, the distraction, and I ran. I ran through guilt and fear and the burning in my lungs. Ran until I hit the highway. Ran until a semi-truck's headlights appeared in the darkness, and I stood in the middle of the road waving my arms like a mad woman. The truck driver was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a CB radio. She took one look at me, filthy, bleeding, wearing a gray uniform and boots held together with duct tape, and said, "What the hell happened to you?" "I escaped from Desert Summit Academy. I need to call someone. Please, they're coming for me." She handed me her phone without hesitation. I dialed Zara's number with shaking hands, praying she'd answer a strange number at 1 in the morning. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello. Ms. Okonkwo, it's Juniper Castellane. I need help. My stepmother had me sent to an abusive program in Arizona. I just escaped. They're going to come looking for me, and I don't know what to do." There was a pause that felt like an eternity. Then Zara's voice, sharp and professional, and the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "Where exactly are you?" I handed the phone to the truck driver, who gave detailed directions to our location. When I got the phone back, Zara was already making plans. "I'm in Los Angeles. I can be there in 6 hours. Do not let them take you back to that facility. The truck driver, can she stay with you?" The driver nodded before I even asked. "I'm not leaving this kid alone." "There's a diner at mile marker 43, Zara continued. "Go there. Order food, stay visible, stay public. I'm calling a local attorney right now who specializes in this type of abuse. She'll meet you in 3 hours. Her name is Leslie Brennan. Don't leave with anyone except her, do you understand?" "What about Sage?" "The girl who helped me escape. They caught her. She's still there." "We'll get her too, I promise, but right now I need you safe. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good. Juniper, listen to me. What's happening to you is illegal. That facility has no proper licensing. Your stepmother committed fraud placing you there. We're going to fix this. But I need you to stay strong for a few more hours. Can you do that?" I looked at the truck driver, this stranger who'd stopped to help me. Thought about Sage, who'd sacrificed her own escape to give me a chance. Thought about my grandmother, who'd left me money specifically to protect me, as if she'd known something like this might happen. I can do that. The diner was warm and bright and smelled like coffee and safety. The truck driver, whose name I learned was Donna, ordered me pancakes and scrambled eggs and hot chocolate. I ate like I was starving because I was. 18 months of expired MREs and punishment portions had left me 20 pounds underweight and constantly hungry. Donna sat across from me, drinking coffee and watching the door like a guard dog. "You want to tell me what that place did to you?" I told her, all of it. The forced labor, the heat exposure, the girls collapsing, the hot seat, the screened letters, the $8,000 a month my father was paying for my abuse. She listened with a face that grew progressively more horrified. "And your parents just sent you there? No questions asked?" "My stepmother convinced my father I was troubled. Drugs, sneaking out, defiant behavior, all lies. But he believed her over me. Donna's jaw clenched. I've got 3 daughters. If anyone ever tried to do this to them, I'd burn that place to the ground myself. Leslie Brennan arrived 2 hours later, exactly when Zara had promised. She was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a briefcase full of files on institutional abuse cases. She ordered coffee, sat down, and got straight to business. I've worked 16 cases involving Desert Summit Academy. Every single one involved fraud, abuse, and misappropriation of funds. The facility operates in a legal gray area. Technically, they're not classified as a therapeutic program, so they avoid most oversight. But they market themselves as therapeutic to parents desperate for help with difficult teens. I wasn't difficult, I said. I had straight A's, perfect attendance. I never did drugs or snuck out, or any of the things my stepmother claimed. Leslie pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. When did your stepmother enter your life? I told her about my mother's death when I was 14. About Theodore remarrying within 18 months to Cordelia Whitmore, a woman who seemed charming and supportive until the ring was on her finger. About how the favoritism started immediately. Her daughter Peyton could do no wrong while I could do no right. About the trust fund from my grandmother that I'd told no one about, but somehow Cordelia found out. She went through your mail, Leslie said flatly. That's how they always find out, and once she knew about the 4.7 million, you became a threat instead of just an annoyance. She tried to get conservatorship, I said, remembering what Sage had told me. That's what this is really about. She wants to control my trust. Leslie nodded. And to get conservatorship, she needs you declared incompetent or dangerous. The wilderness program serves 2 purposes. It isolates you from anyone who might contradict her narrative, and it creates documentation of your troubled behavior that she can use in court. So what do? We fight. Zara's already working on the trust fund side. She's your grandmother's attorney, so she has standing to challenge any conservatorship petition. I handle the criminal side. We're going to document every single abuse that happened at that facility. I'll need you to write down everything you remember. Dates, times, names, specific incidents. I pulled the scraps of paper from my boot, the secret journal I'd been keeping for 18 months. Hundreds of tiny notations, cramped handwriting, dates, and descriptions of every cruelty I'd witnessed. Leslie stared at the papers, then at me. You documented everything. I knew I'd need proof. No one would believe me without proof. Smart kid. She started photographing each page with her phone. This is gold. This is exactly what we need. Do you know if anyone else was documenting? Sage was, the girl who helped me escape. She's been there 9 months longer than me. She has way more detail. We're going to get her out. Today. Zara's already contacted Child Protective Services and the local sheriff. They're executing a search warrant on the facility right now. Every kid there is being removed. Every staff member is being questioned. I felt something crack open in my chest. Relief so profound it hurt. They're really shutting it down? They're shutting it down, and your stepmother is going to face consequences for placing you there fraudulently. Zara's pulling her financial records. We think she's been embezzling from your trust fund, using the program fees as cover. $8,000 a month for 18 months. $144,000. Money that was supposed to be mine, used to pay for my own abuse. What about my father? Did he know what she was doing? Leslie's expression softened. That's harder to prove. He signed the placement papers. He authorized the payments. Whether he knew the truth about the facility or believed your stepmother's lies, that's something you'll have to determine. But legally, he's responsible either way. Zara arrived just before dawn, sweeping into the diner like an avenging angel in a power suit. She was tall, sharp-eyed, with gray-streaked black hair and the kind of presence that made people pay attention. She took one look at me, and her professional mask cracked. Oh, honey, what did they do to you? I couldn't answer. I just stood up and let her hug me. This woman I'd met once for 30 minutes, when I turned 16. She held me while I cried for the first time since the night I was taken. When I finally pulled away, She had her lawyer face back on. Here's where we are. Desert Summit Academy has been raided by CPS and local police. 43 minors have been removed and placed in emergency foster care while their situations are assessed. Sage Moretti is safe. She's being evaluated at a hospital for malnutrition and heat exposure, but she's talking and coherent. Several other children are in worse shape. What about the staff? Being questioned. The facility owner, the program director, and 6 counselors have been detained. The charges are still being determined, but we're looking at child abuse, false imprisonment, fraud, and operating an unlicensed facility. And Cordelia? Zara's smile was cold. That's where things get interesting. I've spent the last 3 hours pulling records on your trust fund management. Cordelia filed a petition for conservatorship 4 months ago, claiming you were mentally unstable and a danger to yourself. She used your placement at Desert Summit as evidence of your need for supervision. But she's the one who put me there. Exactly. It's circular logic. She creates the problem, then uses the problem as justification for control. It's fraud, and it's not going to work. I've filed an emergency motion to have her petition dismissed and to have the court investigate her financial management of the funds she already accessed. Wait, she already accessed my money? Zara's expression darkened. The program fees came directly from your trust. She convinced the trust administrator that you needed therapeutic intervention and that the fees were legitimate medical expenses. $144,000 over 18 months, paid to a facility that was essentially a forced labor camp. Quick pause here. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, please subscribe and drop a comment telling me what you think should happen to Cordelia. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who need them. Now let's see what I decided to do. I sat back down, my legs suddenly weak. She stole from me. She had me kidnapped and abused, and she stole from me to pay for it. Yes, and she's going to pay for that, but here's what you need to decide. Juniper, you're 17 years old. In most states, that means you can petition for emancipation. You'd be legally independent, able to make your own decisions, access your trust fund directly. Your father would have no say over your life anymore. What's the alternative? You go home. Try to repair your relationship with your father if that's even possible. Deal with Cordelia still being in your life, at least until you turn 18. It's only 8 months away. I thought about my father's face the night they took me. The way he stood there and let it happen. The way he'd believed every lie Cordelia told him without once visiting to see the truth for himself. If I go back, she wins. She wanted me gone, erased, broken down enough that I'd never challenge her. If I go home and pretend everything's fine, that's exactly what she wanted. So what do you want? What did I want? I wanted my mother back. I wanted the father I'd had before grief turned him into a stranger. I wanted the last 2 years of my life back. The time before Cordelia, before the lies, before the desert. But I couldn't have any of that. I could only choose what happened next. I want to disappear, I said finally. I want to take my trust fund and start over somewhere she can't find me. I want to build a life that has nothing to do with her or my father or anyone who let this happen to me. Zara nodded slowly. That's the hard choice. The brave choice. Are you sure? I'm sure. But I want her to know I'm coming back someday. I want her to spend every day wondering when I'm going to show up and take everything from her the way she tried to take everything from me. That's called the long game, Leslie said, and it takes patience. I have patience. I spent 18 months surviving hell. I can wait as long as it takes to make her pay. Zara pulled out a folder. Then here's what we do. I file for your emancipation immediately. Given the circumstances, abuse, fraud, parental negligence, it should be granted quickly. Your trust fund gets transferred to your direct control. You change your name temporarily, just enough to make it hard for them to track you. You disappear into college, build a life, build power, and when you're ready, when you have enough leverage to really hurt them, you come back. What about my father? Does he get to know where I am? Zara's expression was carefully neutral. That's your call. I can deliver a message if you want. Or I can let him wonder. I thought about that for a long moment. About the father who'd read me bedtime stories and the father who'd signed papers to have me dragged away in the night. They were the same person and they weren't, and I didn't know how to reconcile that. One letter, I decided. One message, then nothing. Let him live with what he chose. I wrote the letter in the diner on a napkin because I had no paper. It was short. Dad, you chose her over me. You signed papers to have me taken. You paid for my abuse for 18 months and never once visited to see what was really happening. I survived what you did to me. I'll never forgive you. Don't look for me. When I'm ready, I'll find you. I didn't sign it with love. There was no love left. Zara took the napkin, folded it carefully, and put it in her briefcase. I'll make sure he gets it. And Juniper? For what it's worth, I think your grandmother would be proud of you. She set up that trust specifically to protect you. She had concerns about your father remarrying so quickly after your mother's death. She wanted you to have resources that no one could take away. She knew something like this might happen. She was a smart woman who'd seen a lot in her 78 years. She knew that money makes people do terrible things. And she wanted you protected. The emancipation hearing happened 3 weeks later. I'd been staying with Donna, the truck driver who'd picked me up on the highway. She had a spare room and a fierce protective instinct. And she told the social worker assigned to my case that I could stay as long as I needed. My father tried to contest the emancipation. His lawyer argued that I was still a minor who needed parental guidance, that my time at Desert Summit proved I had behavioral issues that required supervision. Cordelia sat beside him in court, playing the concerned stepmother role perfectly. But Leslie and Zara came prepared. They had my documentation from the camp. They had Sage's documentation, even more detailed than mine. They had testimony from 3 other survivors who'd been pulled from the facility. They had medical records showing malnutrition, dehydration, heat stroke. They had financial records proving Cordelia had embezzled trust funds to pay for my abuse. And they had video footage. Turns out one of the counselors at Desert Summit had been secretly recording incidents, building his own insurance policy in case the operation ever got shut down. That footage showed everything. Kids being denied water in 100-degree heat, being forced to dig and refill holes for days on end, being put in isolation for asking to call their parents, being told they were worthless and broken and deserved their suffering. The judge watched 3 minutes of footage before ordering it turned off. Her face had gone from neutral to furious. "Mr. Castellane," she said, her voice icy. "You paid $8,000 a month for 18 months to have your daughter subjected to this?" My father's lawyer started to speak, but Theodore cut him off. "I didn't know. I thought it was a school. Cordelia said it was a good program." "Did you visit, even once?" "No." "Did you request to see the facility before sending your minor child there?" "No." "Did you question why your straight-A student suddenly needed to be removed from your home in the middle of the night by hired transporters?" Cordelia said she was troubled. "And you believed her without investigation, without verification, without apparently any critical thinking whatsoever." The judge looked at me. "Miss Castellane, do you wish to be emancipated from your father's custody?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Granted. As of today, you are legally an adult. Your father will have no say over your medical care, education, finances, or any other aspect of your life. The trust fund established by your grandmother will be transferred to your direct control. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full investigation into Mrs. Cordelia Castellane's management of said trust fund, with potential criminal charges pending." Cordelia's mask finally slipped. "This is ridiculous. I was trying to help her. She needed discipline." "You had a child kidnapped and subjected to forced labor," the judge said flatly. "That's not discipline. That's abuse. And using her own money to pay for that abuse is fraud. You're lucky you're not being arrested right now. That may still happen." I walked out of that courtroom legally free, 17 years old and emancipated, $4.7 million in a trust account with my name on it, and absolutely no idea what to do next, except survive and plan. Zara drove me to the bank the next day to set up access to my trust. This is a lot of money for anyone, let alone a 17-year-old. I'd recommend leaving most of it invested and taking out only what you need for living expenses and education. "I'm going to college," I said. somewhere far from here, somewhere they'll never think to look for me. Have you thought about where? I had. I'd spent 3 weeks thinking about nothing else. I want to study finance, business, learn how money really works, how power really works. I want to understand the systems that people like Cordelia use to hurt people. So you can protect yourself? So I can protect myself and hurt her back. I met Zara's eyes. Is that wrong? To want revenge? She was quiet for a moment. I think wanting justice is natural. Wanting the person who hurt you to face consequences, that's human. How you pursue that justice, that's what matters. You can become someone who uses power to hurt people the way Cordelia did. Or you can become someone who uses power to prevent what happened to you from happening to others. Can't I do both? Zara smiled slightly. Yes, I suppose you can do both. I applied to Wharton under my legal name, with my story of survival carefully packaged in my admissions essay. Institutional abuse and financial exploitation, a personal case study in trust fund fraud. They accepted me with a full scholarship I didn't need, but accepted anyway because it looked good. Before I left for Philadelphia, I visited Sage in the hospital one last time. She'd been released from intensive care but was staying for psychological evaluation. Her parents had shown up finally, horrified and apologetic. Nothing like my father. You're really leaving, she said. I have to. If I stay here, they'll find ways to stay in my life. Cordelia will keep trying to access my money. My father will keep trying to apologize his way back into my good graces. I need distance. What are you going to do with all that money and freedom? I'm going to learn everything I can about how money and power work in this country. Then I'm going to come back and take everything from Cordelia the way she tried to take everything from me. Sage grinned. It was the first real smile I'd seen from her. That's the best revenge I've ever heard. Can I help? Are you going to be okay? My parents are paying for therapy. Real therapy, not the desert kind. And I'm starting a blog about institutional abuse, documenting what happened to us and to other kids. Someone has to tell the truth. Then yes, keep documenting, keep telling the truth. And when I'm ready to move, I'll let you know. We hugged goodbye. Two survivors who dug holes in the desert and escaped, and we're now building something neither of our abusers ever expected us to build. Futures. If you've made it this far in the story, thank you for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me what you think Junie should do when she comes back. Should she destroy Cordelia completely? Show mercy? I read every comment. Now let's jump forward 10 years. Wharton was brutal in the best way. I threw myself into studying finance, economics, business law, learned about mergers and acquisitions, hostile takeovers, private equity, made connections with people who understood that money was power, and power was everything. I changed my name temporarily for safety, Junie Blake, instead of Juniper Castellane, close enough to feel like myself, different enough that a casual search wouldn't find me. I kept my maiden name, Castellane, in legal documents, but used Blake everywhere else. I worked 3 internships during college. One at a private equity firm where I learned how to buy and restructure companies. One at a forensic accounting agency where I learned how to find hidden money and prove fraud. One at an investment bank where I learned how the wealthy really protect and grow their assets. I graduated top of my class. Got recruited by a major consulting firm. Spent 2 years learning how corporations operate, how money flows, how debt and leverage work. Then I moved to private equity, where the real money was made. By the time I was 25, I had turned my $4.7 million into $12 million through careful investments and aggressive work. I lived modestly, saved aggressively, and focused entirely on building wealth and knowledge and power. By 28, I was a partner at a private equity firm, leading acquisitions of mid-sized companies. I had a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely thorough in my due diligence. Nothing got past me, and I'd been watching my father and Cordelia the entire time. Hollis Chen, the private investigator I hired when I turned 23, sent me quarterly reports on the Castellane family finances. What I learned was both satisfying and infuriating. Cordelia had been systematically draining my father's wealth for over a decade. She'd taken out home equity loans on the estate, maxed out credit lines, raided his retirement accounts. Peyton, my stepsister, had never worked a day in her life and was living off credit cards and her mother's schemes. Theodore's architectural firm was struggling. He'd lost major clients. His reputation had suffered after my emancipation became public knowledge, and he'd made poor financial decisions under Cordelia's influence. They owed money everywhere. The house had a $2.3 million mortgage. Credit cards totaled $400,000. Investment loans secured by retirement accounts that had been depleted. They were drowning in debt, staying afloat only through creative accounting and the willingness of banks to extend credit based on assets they no longer actually owned. And all of that debt, every loan, every credit line, every mortgage, was held by regional banks and credit unions that served the wealthy communities where my father lived. Banks that could be bought. At 30, I made my move. A regional bank called Summit Ridge Financial was struggling, needed capital, was open to acquisition. I put together a consortium of investors, led the buyout, and became majority shareholder with 51% ownership. Summit Ridge Financial held my father's mortgage, held Cordelia's credit lines, held the investment loans she'd taken out using his retirement accounts as collateral. I now owned every piece of debt in their lives. I spent 2 years learning the bank inside and out, making improvements, building trust with the board, establishing myself as a competent and ethical leader. I didn't want anyone questioning my motives when the time came. And then, at 32 years old, 16 years after being dragged from my bed in the middle of the night, I was ready. I called a board meeting, announced that we'd be reviewing all delinquent accounts and initiating collection procedures according to standard policy. The Castellane accounts were flagged immediately, 60 days overdue on the mortgage, multiple missed minimum payments on credit lines, investment loans in technical default due to insufficient collateral value. Standard procedure, I told the board, is to send notice of default and initiate acceleration clauses if payment isn't received within 30 days. Are there any objections to following our established policies? One board member, an older man who'd been with the bank for 30 years, raised his hand. The Castellane account has been with us for 15 years. Theodore Castellane is a prominent architect. Should we consider the relationship history? We should consider our fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders and depositors, I said calmly. The account is delinquent. The collateral is underwater. The borrowers have been systematically extracting equity without maintaining payment schedules. If this were any other customer, would we be having this conversation? Silence around the table. They knew the answer. Motion to proceed with standard collection procedures on all flagged accounts, including Castellane. I didn't wait for someone else to make the motion. I was majority shareholder. I could drive this forward. All in favor? The vote was unanimous. Not because they wanted to hurt my father. They had no idea who I was to him. But because the numbers didn't lie and this was business. I drafted the notice of default myself. Professionally worded, legally airtight, devastating in its implications. All loans called due within 30 days. Failure to pay would result in foreclosure proceedings on the primary residence and seizure of any remaining collateral. The letter went out via certified mail on a Tuesday. I imagined Cordelia opening it, reading it, that moment when she realized her carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing. She called the bank on Wednesday. I'd left instructions with my assistant that any call from Cordelia Castellane should be routed directly to me. But don't tell her who she's being connected to. Just the majority shareholder. My assistant buzzed me. Mrs. Castellane on line 1. She's quite insistent. I let it ring 3 times before picking up, savoring the moment. This is Juniper Castellane. Silence. Complete shocked silence. I could hear her breathing, could almost see her face draining of color. That's impossible, she finally managed. You can't be. The majority. Shareholder of Summit Ridge Financial? The person who now controls every debt in your life? I absolutely can be. Hello, Cordelia. It's been 16 years. This is a joke. This is harassment. I'm going to call my lawyer. Please do. Have them review the notice of default. Everything is completely legal and above board. Your accounts are severely delinquent. The bank is exercising its right to call the loans due. You have 30 days to pay $3.1 million, or we begin foreclosure proceedings. We don't have that kind of money. You know we don't have that kind of money. Then you should have made your payments on time. Or better yet, you shouldn't have spent 16 years living beyond your means on borrowed money you never intended to pay back. Theodore will call you. He'll explain. There must be some kind of payment plan we can arrange. I'm happy to meet with both of you. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office at the bank. Don't be late. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear or nervousness. From satisfaction. From the pure, cold pleasure of watching the trap spring closed after 16 years of patience. That night, I barely slept. I kept imagining the conversation they must be having. Cordelia having to explain to my father that his estranged daughter, the one he'd sent away and never saw again, now owned their debt and was calling it due. The realization of how completely they'd lost control. They arrived at 2 p.m. exactly. My assistant showed them to my office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I decorated it with art from female artists, books on financial justice, and a framed photo of my mother that I kept on my desk where visitors could see it. Cordelia entered first. She'd aged, of course. 16 years had added lines around her eyes and mouth, gray to her carefully colored hair. But she still carried herself with that entitled confidence, still wore designer clothes she probably couldn't afford. Theodore followed her. He'd aged more dramatically. The confident architect I remembered had been replaced by a stooped, gray-haired man who looked older than his 58 years. He moved slowly, like someone carrying a great weight. He saw me and stopped dead. Junie? Hello, Dad. Please, sit down. They sat. Cordelia's eyes were darting around the room, calculating, looking for leverage. Theodore couldn't stop staring at me like I was a ghost. You look good, he said finally. Healthy, successful. I'm glad. Are you? Are you glad that the daughter you had kidnapped and sent to a forced labor camp survived and thrived? How nice for you, he flinched. I didn't know what that place was. I swear to you, if I'd known... You would have done what? Visited? Asked questions? Actually acted like a father? I leaned forward. You signed papers to have me dragged from my bed at 3 a.m. You paid $8,000 a month for 18 months while I dug holes in the desert. You never visited, never questioned, never checked to see if what Cordelia told you was true. So forgive me if I don't particularly care what you would have done if you'd known. Cordelia cut in, trying to take control. This is pointless. We're here to discuss our accounts. Surely we can work out a payment arrangement. Why would I do that? Because we're family. Because Theodore is your father. Because you're clearly successful and don't need the money. I smiled. It wasn't a kind expression. You're right, I don't need the money, but I do need justice, and I need to know that you'll never be able to hurt anyone else the way you hurt me. I was trying to help you, Cordelia insisted, her voice rising. You were troubled. You needed discipline. I had straight A's. I was a good kid. The only problem I had was you trying to steal my inheritance. That's not true. The trust fund was... Stop. I opened a folder on my desk. I have copies of everything. The conservatorship petition you filed claiming I was mentally incompetent. The financial records showing you embezzled $144,000 from my trust to pay for my abuse. The emails between you and your lawyer discussing how to remove the stepdaughter obstacle. I have all of it, Cordelia. Every piece of evidence showing exactly what you did and why you did it. Theodore's head swung toward his wife. What is she talking about? What conservatorship petition? It was a precaution, Cordelia said quickly. In case something happened to her, someone needed to be able to manage her affairs. It was a plan to steal $4.7 million, I corrected. She sent me away to break me so she could have me declared incompetent. Then she'd control my money forever. You were just the convenient idiot who signed whatever she put in front of you. That's not true, Theodore said, but his voice was weak. He was starting to see it finally. 16 years too late, but he was seeing it. I pulled out more documents. Here's your financial history over the past 16 years. Home equity loans totaling $900,000. most of which Cordelia spent on furniture, clothes, and club memberships. Credit cards maxed out to 400,000, primarily for Peyton's lifestyle. Retirement accounts rated early, paying penalties to fund renovations you couldn't afford. You're bankrupt, Dad. She's been systematically destroying your finances for over a decade. Quick pause. If this confrontation is giving you life right now, please hit that subscribe button and share this video. Tell me in the comments what you think Junie should do next. Your support means everything. Now let's see what happens. Theodore was reading the documents with shaking hands. Cordelia, how did this happen? We needed those things. The house needed updating. Peyton needed support. You were too busy with work to handle finances, so I handled them. You handled them by driving us $3 million into debt while lying about every single expense? We can fix this. We just need time. Theodore's firm will land a big contract. We'll sell some assets. You have no assets, I interrupted. Everything you own is leveraged. The house is worth less than you owe on it. The cars are leased. The club membership is on a credit card you can't pay. You have nothing left to sell. Cordelia's mask was cracking, the entitled confidence giving way to panic. You can't do this. You can't just destroy your own father. I'm not destroying him. You already did that. I'm just refusing to save him from the consequences of trusting you. Theodore set down the papers. He looked at me with eyes that were finally seeing clearly. What do you want, Junie? Revenge? To watch us lose everything? We'll be homeless. We'll have nothing. You'll have exactly what I had when I escaped from that desert. Nothing but the will to survive and the knowledge that the people who were supposed to love you chose to hurt you instead. I'm sorry. His voice broke. God, Junie, I'm so sorry. I failed you. I know I did. I've known it for 16 years. I've thought about you every single day, wondered where you were, if you were okay, if you'd ever forgive me. And the answer is no, isn't it? You'll never forgive me. I might have, I said quietly. If you'd looked for me. If you'd tried to make it right. But you didn't. You got my letter. You knew I was out there somewhere surviving without you, and you just moved on. You let Cordelia keep spending your money, keep living the life she built on my suffering. You didn't change anything, so no, I won't forgive you. What about mercy? Theodore asked. What about giving us a chance to make this right? I thought about 18 months in the desert. Thought about girls collapsing from heat stroke while staff watched and did nothing. Thought about Sage, who helped me escape and was caught because she gave me a chance. Thought about all the nights I'd spent planning this moment, imagining what I'd say, how I'd feel. The answer surprised me. I'll give you the same mercy you gave me, I said. 30 days to figure it out. If you can pay the debt, you keep the house. If you can't, I foreclose. But there's one condition. Anything, Theodore said desperately. I turned to Cordelia. You divorce my father immediately. You sign papers giving up any claim to his assets, his pension, his future earnings. You walk away with whatever's in your personal bank account and nothing else. And you stay away from him, from me, from everyone in this family forever. That's insane. I'm not doing that. Then I foreclose. Your choice. Theodore was staring at his wife with new eyes, seeing her finally for what she was, what she'd always been. Cordelia, what did you really do with Junie's trust fund money? Silence. The 144,000 you paid to Desert Summit, I said. Where did you think that money came from? I thought, you said it was from our savings. She lied, I said. She embezzled it from my trust fund, used my own money to pay for my abuse. She's a thief and a liar, and she's been using you for 16 years. Theodore stood up slowly. Get out. Cordelia blinked. What? Get out of my sight. Get out of this meeting. Get out of my life. I'll sign whatever papers she wants. I'll give you whatever divorce settlement gets you away from me fastest, but I never want to see you again. Theodore, you're being manipulated. She's playing on your guilt. We can fight this together. We? His voice rose for the first time. There is no we. There never was. You used me. You isolated my daughter and had her sent away so you could steal her money. You've spent 16 years destroying everything I built, and I let you because I was too weak and too guilty and too afraid to be alone. But I'm done. Get out! Cordelia stood, her face twisted with rage and fear. You'll regret this, both of you. I'll sue. I'll fight. I'll. You'll lose, I said calmly. I have lawyers who specialize in financial fraud. I have documentation of every crime you committed. Walk away now with something or fight and lose everything, including your freedom. Your choice. She looked between me and Theodore, calculating one last time. Then she grabbed her purse and walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Theodore and I sat in silence for a long moment. What happens now? He finally asked. Now you figure out how to pay $3.1 million in 30 days? Or you don't, and I foreclose on the house. And us? Is there any chance that someday we could talk, really talk? I looked at my father, this broken man who'd chosen badly and lost everything. Part of me wanted to hate him forever. Part of me just felt tired. Maybe, I said, someday, but not now. Not until you've actually faced what you did. Not until you've lived with the consequences long enough to understand what they cost. That's fair. He stood to leave, then paused. Your mother would be proud of you. The woman you became despite everything. She always said you were strong. I learned to be strong because I had to survive what you did to me. I know. He walked to the door, stopped once more. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. And I really do hope that someday you can forgive me, but I understand if you can't. After he left, I sat alone in my office for a long time, looking out at the city I'd conquered, thinking about the empire I'd built from desert survival and diamond-hard rage. I'd won. Completely, utterly, overwhelmingly won, but why did I feel so empty? I called Sage that night. She was still the one person who really understood what I'd survived, what I'd built, what this victory meant and cost. I did it, I told her. I walked into that office and I destroyed her. Cordelia's losing everything. My father finally sees who she really is. I won. Then why do you sound like someone who lost? Because winning doesn't feel the way I thought it would. I spent 16 years planning this. 16 years getting stronger, smarter, richer, more powerful. And now that it's done, I just feel tired. Sage was quiet for a moment. Revenge is like that. You think it'll fill the hole they left, but it doesn't. It just shows you the hole was always there and nothing external was ever going to fix it. So what do I do now? You decide who you want to be next. The woman who destroyed her stepmother, or the woman who does something meaningful with all that power you built. I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. About the girl who'd been dragged away at 16 and the woman who'd returned at 32 to burn down her abuser's life. About the space between revenge and healing, between justice and peace. The 30 days passed. Theodore tried everything to raise the money, reached out to old clients, tried to sell his firm, attempted to negotiate with other banks for refinancing, but his credit was destroyed, his reputation was damaged, and no one would take the risk. On day 29, he called me. I can't do it. I can't raise the money. The house is yours. I know. The foreclosure paperwork is already prepared. Can I ask you something? What are you going to do with it? The house? I'd been thinking about that. The house where I'd grown up, where my mother had lived, where I'd been taken from in the middle of the night. It held my entire childhood, good and bad, wrapped up in walls and memories. I'm going to sell it, I said, and I'm going to donate every penny to organizations that help survivors of institutional abuse. Legal advocacy, therapy funding, investigations into facilities like Desert Summit. Your house is going to save kids like me. Theodore made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. She'd like that. Your mother. Elena always said the best revenge was building something better than what tried to destroy you. Mom said that? All the time. She was wise like that. I should have listened to her more. Should have listened to you more. Should have been the father she thought I was. The foreclosure went through. Theodore moved into a modest apartment, took a job at a firm where he was an associate instead of a partner, started the slow work of rebuilding from nothing. Cordelia disappeared into whatever life people like her build when their schemes collapse. I heard she moved to Florida, changed her name, was probably already looking for the next wealthy man to exploit. I sold the estate for 2.8 million. Every penny went to the Elena Castellane Foundation for Institutional Abuse Survivors, named for my mother. Sage came on board as director of investigations. We hired attorneys, forensic accountants, and investigators. Within a year, we'd helped shut down 6 abusive programs operating in legal gray areas. We'd recovered stolen funds for 43 families. We'd placed over 100 kids in legitimate therapeutic care instead of forced labor camps. The work felt good, purposeful, like I was turning all that rage and pain into something that actually mattered. But I still felt unfinished with my father. 2 years after the foreclosure, he reached out again. Not asking for money or help, just asking if I'd be willing to have coffee. I almost said no, almost let him stay in the box labeled people who failed me. But Sage's words kept echoing. Decide who you want to be next. We met at a neutral coffee shop on a Saturday morning. He looked better than he had at the bank. Still older, still diminished, but there was something clearer in his eyes. Something that looked like acceptance. Thank you for meeting me, he said. I know you didn't have to. Why am I here, Dad? What do you want? Nothing. I want nothing from... You accept a chance to say some things I should have said 16 years ago. He took a breath. I was a coward. After your mother died, I fell apart. And instead of doing the hard work of grieving and being a father to you, I looked for someone to fix me. Cordelia was there, and she was good at seeming like what I needed. So I let her take over. I let her push you to the side because it was easier. I let her convince me you were the problem because confronting her would have meant being alone again. You chose comfort over me. Yes, every single time I chose the easy path. And when she suggested Desert Summit, when she showed me the brochure and the testimonials and told me it would help you, I chose to believe her because believing her meant I didn't have to question anything. I didn't have to admit I'd married someone who was destroying my family. Why didn't you visit? Even once? His face crumpled. Because I was afraid of what I'd see. Afraid that if I saw the truth, I'd have to admit what I'd done. So I just paid the bills and told myself you were getting better and that eventually you'd come home and we'd all be fine. We were never going to be fine. You sent me to hell and pretended it was summer camp. I know, and I've had to live with that every day for 18 years. I see your face that night, the way you looked at me when those men dragged you away. I see it in my dreams. I'll see it for the rest of my life. I sipped my coffee, giving myself time to feel what I was feeling. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something softer than the rage I'd carried for so long. The foundation is doing good work, Theodore continued. I follow the website. I see the kids you're helping, the programs you're shutting down. You're saving people, Uni. You turned what happened to you into something that protects others. That's incredible. Mom would have wanted that. She would have. And she would have been so proud of the woman you became. Not because you destroyed Cordelia, though honestly that woman deserved it, but because you survived and you chose to help other survivors. That's a strength I can't even imagine. Thank you so much for staying with me through this entire journey. If you made it to the end, you're incredible. More powerful stories are already on your screen. Click one now and see what happens next. Drop a comment and tell me, should Uni forgive her father? Would you? I read every comment, and your thoughts mean everything. See you in the next story. We talked for 2 hours. About Mom, about my childhood before Cordelia, about the life we'd had when I was small and he was still himself. It wasn't healing exactly, it wasn't reconciliation, but it was the beginning of something. A possibility that maybe someday we could build a relationship based on who we both were now instead of who we'd been then. I don't forgive you, I said as we were leaving. Not yet, maybe not ever, but I'm willing to keep talking, to see if there's something salvageable here. That's more than I deserve, thank you. He hugged me goodbye, careful and tentative, and I let him. It felt strange. This man had been my hero when I was small, my betrayer when I was young, my target when I was building power. Now he was just a flawed human who'd made terrible choices and was trying to do better. Too late. As I walked back to my car, I thought about the girl who'd been dragged away at 16. She'd wanted her father to save her, wanted him to realize what was happening and come rescue her from the desert. She'd spent months waiting for him to figure it out, to show up, to be the hero she needed. He never came. She'd saved herself. And maybe that was the real victory. Not destroying Cordelia, not foreclosing on the house, not even building an empire that proved how wrong they'd all been about me. The real victory was surviving. Becoming someone strong enough that I never needed to be saved again. Building a life where I protected myself and helped protect others. 3 years later, the Elena Castellane Foundation had expanded to 15 states. We'd shut down 23 abusive programs, recovered over $6 million in embezzled trust funds, helped place 300 kids in legitimate therapeutic care. Sage's investigative journalism had won awards. Our legal team had testified before Congress about the need for better oversight of wilderness therapy programs. And I'd built Castellane Financial Group into a powerhouse, specializing in ethical lending and protection of vulnerable clients. We had policies specifically designed to prevent what Cordelia did, using someone's own assets to fund their abuse. We worked with trust fund administrators to ensure proper oversight. We'd become known as the bank that actually protected people. I was 42 years old, sitting in my Manhattan office, when my assistant buzzed me about a visitor who didn't have an appointment but said it was urgent. "She's 18 years old," my assistant said. "Recently escaped from a program called Mountain Ridge Academy. She said someone told her you help people like her." I smiled. That phrase, people like her, people like us, survivors who'd been sent away, who'd escaped, who were trying to figure out what came next. "Send her in." The young woman who entered was thin, exhausted, moving with the careful wariness of someone who'd learned not to trust easily. She had a backpack and determination written all over her face. "Miss Castellane, I'm Hannah. I was told you help survivors of abusive programs." "I do." "Sit down, Hannah. Tell me your story." She told me about being sent away at 16, about forced labor disguised as therapy, about parents who believed lies instead of investigating, about a trust fund that was being drained to pay for her abuse. It was my story. It was Sage's story. It was the story of hundreds of kids whose families had failed them. "What happened when you escaped?" I asked. "I called a lawyer, someone who'd helped another survivor. She helped me get emancipated, access my trust fund, file charges against the program, just like you did." "Then you're already on the right path. What do you need from me?" "Advice. You built an empire from survival. You turned pain into power. How do I do that? How do I make sure what happened to me actually means something?" I looked at this young woman who reminded me so much of my 16-year-old self, hurt and angry and determined not to let it break her. "You do exactly what you're doing now," I said. "You survive. You build. You help the next person who escapes. You turn your story into something that protects others. And you never, ever let anyone tell you that what happened to you doesn't matter." Hannah nodded, taking notes. "The foundation, you started it with the money from foreclosing on your father's house, right?" "Yes." "Did that feel like revenge or justice?" It was a good question, the kind of question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. "Both," I said honestly, "and eventually neither. Eventually, it just felt like the right thing to do with resources I'd earned through surviving what shouldn't have happened to me." "Do you ever see your father?" "Sometimes. We have coffee a few times a year. Talk about safe things. It's not the relationship we had before, and it never will be. But it's something, and that's enough." Hannah left with a plan, resources, contacts, and hope. I watched her go and thought about the chain of survival we'd built. Sage and me, then the kids we'd helped, now Hannah who'd helped the next person. That night, I got a text from Sage. "Another facility shut down in Utah. 15 kids removed, 3 arrests. This one's for you, partner." I texted back, "This one's for all of us." 26 years after being dragged from my bed at 16, I sat in my office and realized something profound. Cordelia had tried to erase me, had tried to make me disappear, break me down, steal my future. Instead, she'd created someone who made sure no one else could be erased the way I almost was. The girl who dug holes in the desert had become the woman who built foundations. The teenager who was told she was broken had become the adult who fixed broken systems. The victim who was supposed to disappear had become impossible to ignore. That wasn't just revenge. That wasn't just survival. That was transformation. And transformation, I'd learned, was the best revenge of all. I picked up my phone and called my father, something I did rarely but occasionally. Dad, it's uni. I was thinking maybe we could have dinner next week, really talk about everything. It's time. His voice cracked with emotion. I'd like that. I'd really like that. We weren't healed. Maybe we'd never fully heal, but we were trying, and that was something. As I hung up and looked out at the Manhattan skyline, I thought about my mother, about her saying that the best revenge was building something better than what tried to destroy you. I'd built an empire, a foundation, a life that mattered. Mom was right. That was the best revenge of all. Thank you so much for watching this story unfold. If you made it this far, you're incredible. More gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss what happens next.